by Tova Jones. Between 1455 and 1485, the House of York battled the House of Lancaster for the English crown in an English civil war called the Wars of Roses. These houses were England's two most powerful families. The battle for the throne raged on and off for 30 years and came to an abrupt cease after the Battle of Bosworth Field. The date was August 7, 1485, 14 years after the 28-year-old Henry Tudor, more famously known as Henry VII, had been banished from both Britain and northern France. The Tudor age began on a smoky Sunday, with 7 ships carrying aboard men of many backgrounds to the harbor of Milford Haven. Henry Tudor's intent was a surprise invasion on the reigning King of England, Richard III, for the crown. He led 2,000 political descendants and mercenaries in the Battle of Bosworth Field, and although Henry was not born into a royal family, he battled for his position, and he fathered the greatest English dynasty. By winning the Battle of Bosworth Field, Henry Tudor seized the crown of England for himself. The Wars of Roses was named because of the emblems of the two houses fighting in the war. For the House of Lancaster, a red rose, and for the House of York, a white one. Combining these two flowers symbolizes the end of the Wars of Roses and the reunification of England. After the war, Henry VII, a descendant of the Lancaster family, married Elizabeth of the York family, even though Henry Tudor murdered Richard III, Elizabeth's uncle, to win the crown. He married her to form an alliance between the two families after the long and bitter war. This was a pivotal moment and marked the beginning of the Tudor Dynasty, which befittingly was symbolized by the merger of the two roses, a white rose inscribed within a red rose. Together, these became known as the Tudor rose. The symbol was minted into a coin after the marriage, and it was popular with poets and artists too. Anyone who sees history as boring should be informed of the Tudor monarchy, which continues to have multi-generational influence on religion and literature. During the Tudor Dynasty, 6 Tudor monarchs ruled the kingdom: Henry VII, Henry VIII, Edward VI, Lady Jane Grey, Mary I, and Elizabeth I. Henry VII reigned from 1485 until his death by tuberculosis in 1509. He formed international alliances through the marriages of his children. His second son, Henry VIII, succeeded him to the throne. The second Tudor monarch, Henry VIII, is infamous for his 6 queens. He divorced 2, beheaded 2, 1 died of natural causes, and the 6th was widowed by his death. The scandal and drama of Henry VIII began when he married his older brother's widow, Katherine of Aragon, on June 11, 1509. Katherine had numerous miscarriages and children that did not survive infancy. Eventually, in 1516, she gave birth to a surviving daughter, Mary. He felt that the marriage was cursed and needed a way to divorce Katherine and marry his new love, Anne Boleyn. However, the Catholic Church would never allow him to be divorced. Henry chose to have England break away from the Catholic Church and form the new Church of England, which is the root of today's Christian religions. Under the Church of England, Henry VIII was now able to get divorced. Plus, his kingdom could increase their wealth by keeping the tax money paid to the church, and he could marry Anne. Anne Boleyn and the king were married. The couple had a daughter named Elizabeth. However, Anne too was unable to give Henry a male heir. Henry VIII got bored with Anne, so to get rid of her, he had her charged with adultery and incest and ultimately beheaded. Henry's third wife, Jane Seymour, finally produced a male heir, Edward VI. Unfortunately, Jane died of a fever, as many people did during this time period. Henry's 3 living heirs, Mary, Elizabeth, and Edward VI, were raised together as siblings. Henry's other 3 wives included Anne of Cleves, Katherine Howard, and Katherine Parr. Henry divorced Anne of Cleves after only 6 short months. He accused Katherine Howard of adultery and had her beheaded when she was only 17 years old. Henry's 6th and final wife outlived him and was widowed by his death. The third monarch in the Tudor family was Protestant King Edward VI. Edward took the throne at the age of 9 and died at the age of 16. He was betrothed to Lady Jane Grey at age 6. However, because he did not live to marrying age and did not have children, the Tudor male line died with him. On his deathbed in 1553, Edward named Jane Grey Queen of England in order to keep England from the Catholic Church. She was queen for 9 days before Mary I had her and her followers imprisoned and stole the throne. Some say that Mary was the rightful queen because Henry VIII named her in his will. The truth of the matter is, Mary rallied supporters together, and after 9 days of Jane being queen, the Privy Council in London realized they'd made a scandalous mistake. In order to fix it, they pronounced Mary Queen of England. Mary was a devout Catholic like her mother. Her first order of business? To pass the validation of the marriage between her mother and her father, declaring that she was no bastard child. She earned her nickname as Bloody Mary by having Lady Jane Grey along with her followers beheaded. Queen Mary brought the Roman Catholic Church back to England and kicked out the Protestants. The sixth and final monarch of the Tudor Dynasty was Elizabeth I, nicknamed the Virgin Queen because she was unable to have children from chickenpox scarring. Also, it is said that she lived and died a virgin. However, it's speculated that she had a boyfriend or two. Elizabeth took the throne in 1559 after her half-sister Mary's death. Elizabeth was a liberal Protestant Christian, making her rule very different from Mary's. She had a troubled life in part because the Catholic Church never recognized her mother's marriage to Henry VIII, and the Pope declared her a bastard child. Elizabeth's rule is often known as the Elizabethan era or the Golden Age for the prosperity it brought to England. It was a time when people could enjoy leisure and the arts. Elizabeth was an educated, charismatic leader who loved drama and literature. Her favorites were England's utmost playwrights, including Christopher Marlowe, Ben Jonson, and William Shakespeare. She patronized Shakespeare. It's rumored that she even wrote some of his plays. Queen Elizabeth contributed to building the first English theaters, too. The Tudor Dynasty died with Queen Elizabeth in 1603, but the influence is still apparent today through religion, literature, theater, and even architecture. Establishing the English Church has facilitated the many divorces, including that of later monarchs like Prince Charles and Princess Di. They standardized the English language through mass distribution of literature, from William Caxton's printing and translating of books. These books were later turned into plays. I went to my local theater just last week to see Romeo and Juliet, written by Shakespeare. Overall, England's greatest and most scandalous dynasty will continue to have multi-generational impact on the world.